folks. And this is just, just to name you a few stakeholders. So library is only a partner. And we offer a range of services from creating metadata to finding the right metadata standard, all the way to understanding, what kind of storage requirements this data set would be requiring. I must add that this has been a very fruitful process, and we have been learning, and we are more and more uncovering what we need to be doing, what we need to be finding, understanding. But it's really just the tip of the iceberg. And let me just illustrate to you through an example. Actually, before my example, let me provide you some data which would link better. As we were creating this research data management service group, we wanted to get a better sense of the scientists' practices. And we actually decided to run a pilot survey. It's a pilot survey in the sense that we only administered it using scientists who had been involved in NSF projects. It was really not a comprehensive survey. It included 86 or so scientists. But I just wanted to show you a couple of tables before giving you another example. This illustrates in a way what I mean by saying research data means different things. And we were also surprised to see that almost 70% of the scientists surveyed, they said that what they consider their research data is in the text format. And when we looked at the file formats, again, it was surprising because they were very familiar, common file formats, such as TXT, documents, spreadsheets, and JPEGs. So let me take you to another example now. This is a good way of looking at, again, what Nejla mentioned. We asked them, we said, do you plan to share your research data, or are you sharing now? And predominantly the answer was maybe, but only small subset of it. And when we asked why they are hesitating to share their research data, most of the reasons described were related to information policy. They were not sure about the security provisions. They were worried about licensing, commercialization, confidentiality, so on and so forth. And actually, another underlying reason, which kind of comes through comments, free text comments, is that many scientists are, in a way, somewhat insecure or not certain whether the data set they have gathered is up to standards and follows their community's practices in means of how data are captured, how they are recorded, and the type of metadata surrounding this data, their data sets. So let me give you another example before talking a bit about policies, procedures, and infrastructure. Here's Dr. Walcott holding a pigeon. He's one of my favorite scientists. He's at Cornell, and actually he's a premier neurobiologist. And he has been last, I would say, 10 years collaborating with several PIs and often funds from the National Science Foundation. And his research area involves loons. And what he does is he tracks these loons and he looks at their habitats, he looks at their nesting platforms, and he tries to, his main research questions are related to how loons migrate and their nesting and their reproduction patterns. And actually he has been a premier, in a way, scientist in these groups because they started these methods of tagging birds, so each bird gets a name, they track the bird, and they try to understand the impact of many factors, including lake and the other environmental factors from pollution to temperature. And as I was preparing for this research, I wanted to kind of see, I'm aware of this research project for a long time, but I said, what if I'm a scientist? And I wanted to see what he has produced. So just doing some research, I found out that there's a project site called the Loon Project. It's a really nice website because it not only includes some scientific information, but it's really a good example of extending science to public. There is some information very accessible to public. But unfortunately, this site actually resides one of the co-PI's personal website. And then I found hundreds of articles, and all from at different places, some of them closed, some of them open. Here's an example of an article that appeared in the Behavioral Ecology periodical. And continuing my search, I found some data sets put in Cornell's repository. There are hundreds of them. You open them, they're Excel spreadsheets. You look at them. You can't stare at them for a long time. But they are really pretty complex with different fields and different values. And luckily, I also ran into a contextual file, a metadata file. And interestingly, it looks like they got really good advice, or they have a very nice, strong community, because they did use a metadata standard called ecological metadata language. So there was a file to be able to open and understand how all these data fields are collected, what they mean, so on and so forth. But unfortunately, it took me probably half an hour to open this file, because it was a proprietary extension that I actually ended up really doing some kind of tricking, opening and capturing it as a PDF file. And let me see if this would work, but also I ran into hundreds of sound files, and they are lovely because, as I said, each bird has a name, and that depending on the name, this is actually Carol.
Singing Carol.
Yeah. So, and of course, continuing my journey, I found video files and so on and so forth. So, the lesson I learned here is, as a librarian, it took me more than an hour to pull all these kind of examples together. They were all residing in different places. Some of them were together, but even if they were together, you really had to be really kind of intuitive to understand how they link to each other. And, I find it very useful to have this sort of hands-on exercises, because it kind of tells you how challenging this whole field of linking information is. And in a way, for many of us, this is the vision, to be able to bring together from upstream research stage all the way to many outcomes of cell communication process in a kind of a cohesive, holistic picture, so that we could leverage not only the resources in this network of research, but also to be able to advance science. Well, such a vision actually requires an environment where we factor in several issues. And just for today, I am going to present to you 4 quadrants, 4 policy and process areas. And I put usability at the center.